Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's your boy Libertarian Election Predictions, back at it again with another video. Um, Yesterday, I uploaded a video. It was the 2022 Senate predictions as of May 31st. So if you guys haven't checked that out, please do so. And yeah, let's just dive into the video. Also, guys, I'm planning to make an NBC themed election night. So if you guys have any templates. If you guys have any templates of that, if you guys don't mind me, please share that with me. My email is I'll put the email in the description. Although I might make a very short video about my email and where you can email your templates to me if you guys have it. But I'll mention that one time before signing off. But yeah, let's just go into this. So as you can see, this is the gubernatorial map that we have as of right now. So this will be the map that we will be seeing. So again, it's largely similar to 2018, except New Hampshire and Vermont re-elect their governors every 2 years. So it's been a tradition for theirs for a long time. So yeah. So let's just get straight into it. So let's start with the state of Oregon. Oregon is an interesting one because it's always been single digits, and I think their Democratic governor is sort of unpopular now. I think let's see what the polls are saying. Is there a Republican nominee for it? Oh, Tina Kotek. Oh, Betsy Johnson. Yeah, she's a moderate independent, right? So I think she can definitely take out some of those Democratic votes and then could deliver Oregon their first Republican governor. Most pollsters are rating it likely D, but ooh, look at this. A Republican is leading. Again, it's a Republican pollster, but you can clearly see a generic Republicans ahead. So I could say Oregon might flip, although I'm not 100% sure what to say. But to play it safe, maybe I'll just say it leans Democrat, although I don't think it's out of any realm that the GOP can win, considering looking at the generic polls. And then in a three-horse race, the Democrats are winning, so yeah. Although I could put Oregon as tilt Republican, although that might be too bold of a prediction. Nevada. So Nevada is an interesting one because as I spoke about yesterday, Catherine Cortez Masto is having a tough race, and I think Steve Sisolak will have a tough race as well. As we see, we have not seen any polling, although Steve Sisolak is leading his opposition. He is leading, so although they have swapped leads, but most of these leads are from Republican pollsters. Although it's interesting that a Democratic pollster shows Joe Lombardo, who I think will probably win the primary, leading. But again, I don't know what this polling did. Did they ask Republican voters? Could be the reason, but again, that's not the point. So I would say or Nevada would be tilt, considering that Steve Sisolak is leading and have good share in polls, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4. He's leading in 4 of the polls. So I think Steve Sisolak might survive, although I'm not necessarily sure. So Arizona. So Arizona is a competitive one as they do not have an incumbent. I mean, Doug Ducey's the current incumbent, but again, he's term limited. First elected back in 2014, absolutely destroyed the Democrats in 2018. So you can see Kari Lake is the favorite to win their GOP nomination, and Katie Hobbs is favored to win the Democratic nomination. So as you can see, Kari Lake is doing quite poorly against Katie Hobbs. And again, this is a gubernatorial race, so I think the national environment doesn't really play in as much as a Senate race or House races. But I feel like Kari Lake is Arizona is a state where where playing the Trump card doesn't bode very well with the voters, particularly many of the Arizona GOP voters are like fans of McCain. So if you are not really in lockstep with them, you are gonna have a tough time. So I would say Arizona is tilt Republican right now, because a generic Democrats are losing on the generic ballot, and all the polls have suggested. But I think Katie Hobbs is fairly popular. As Katie Hobbs is fairly popular, so I might say Arizona is tilt Democrat, although this might be optimistic. And again, it all depends on the candidate quality. Like if Carrie Lake could moderate some of her views, then I could. But I'll see how the campaign unfolds, and if she continues to go extreme Trumpism, that might hurt her. So moving on to the state of New Mexico. So New Mexico is interesting, as Lujan Grisham, I believe, won by 16 points almost 4 years ago, and um, she's been embroiled in recently. She's been embroiled in controversies, and those controversies definitely won't play super well. Although even though she's leading right now, but this was like done in early April before those party, and despite considering that she was in previously embroiled in scandals, and I think there was even a Microsoft News. I was like looking at that, and she was embroiled in a scandal. So I think if the GOP could use that effectively, which I think they will, could make the seat tilt Republican. So this is our first flip, and actually I think this is the first flip for the GOP. This Democrats have already flipped one seat. Colorado is interesting because Polis, and like I saw in a news article, Polis is enjoying good amount of popularity, and his COVID policies. He's like a libertarian Democrat, so I think he would do relatively well in the state. So I would probably give Colorado lean Democrat, considering that he's popular, and while the Democrats in the Colorado legislature and nationally are underwater in Colorado, he's the only one in the positives. So because of that, I would say he is the favorite to win, and he's blowing his opposition out of the water as well. And he's even leading in generic polls. So I think it's fair to rate Colorado as likely Democratic. I think he'll probably do as well as he did in 2018. Moving on to Kansas. Kansas is a really interesting one, as Laura Kelly is the incumbent, and many pundits, predict that she might lose to Derek Schmidt. And particularly, the poll suggested that, but she is fairly popular, and remember, she's governing with what, a 2/3 supermajority, and that is not easy to govern. Like, let's say hypothetically, I was the governor of X state, but my that legislature has a Y supermajority. So obviously, I think it'll be really hard to get anything done. Plus, she's fought with Biden on some issues, so I would say because of incumbency advantage and the fact that gubernatorial elections tend to be more local than national, I think Kelly could hang on, although I could be wrong. Texas, I would rate as likely Republican. We all know the terrible Uvalde shooting, and I definitely, we should all unite with each other and send prayers to all the victims of the Uvalde school shooting. And personally, I think it's really, the guns, the very lax gun laws. I'm not against guns, but again, anything too lax, like particularly guns, are super deadly and they can end lives immediately. So I'm in favor of like moderate, like certain restrictions on guns, although I would not go as far as what many Democrats would propose. Although I believe some is necessary to protect or the general population. But even despite that, I don't think, and I mean, even though his popularity has taken a bit of a dent, I still think Texas will be likely Republican, as Beto has been losing even after the shooting. So I see Texas as likely Republican. So moving back up north to Minnesota. So in Minnesota, Tim Walz, he has faced scrutiny over his handling of the protests in 2020. Remember when George Floyd was killed, and then there were like mass protests. But again, he seems to be leading and relatively comfortably. So I'd say Minnesota is likely Democrat, although this could change. But I think he's still going to hang on. And remember, much of these are more local. A lot of these aren't influenced by national politics. And that was the case in 2018, as when we thought Georgia would flip Democrat, but it didn't. And even Florida, when we thought it would flip Democrat after 8 years of Rick Scott, it didn't. So I think the national environment would play less of a role in gubernatorial elections, and there's always some states that are immune to waves. Like if you look at 2014, even in Florida, Rick Scott only won by 2 points, when 1.1%, when the GOP did very well nationally that year. Pennsylvania, Tom Corbett was ousted, even though 2014 was such a good year for the GOP. So again, I think these are a lot more local, and it all depends on the governor's popularity, more so than what voters think of Congress. So let's move down south to Iowa. So in Iowa, excuse me. So you can see it's solid R, and Kim Reynolds is easily winning. So I'd say Kim Reynolds easily wins another term in office as the governor of Iowa. Moving over to Wisconsin. So Wisconsin's, I think, will definitely be very competitive, and I'm really excited to see that how that unfolds on the night on November 8th. I'll be really interested to see. So Tony Evers, or correct me if I'm wrong, if is it Tony Evers or Tony Evers, I'm not sure, but if you're a Wisconsinite, please correct me on that. He is facing a very tough re-election battle, as his approvals isn't super high, and he's running against Rebecca Kleefisch, who is, I think, the former lieutenant governor of Wisconsin. Yeah, she was the former Republican lieutenant, but he's still doing well despite his approval. So, but again, I think his approval could catch up to him and make Wisconsin flip red, but I think super narrowly. Michigan, I think, Gretchen Whitmer is still relatively popular. I don't think she will lose re-election as many think, even if her strict COVID policies are there. She's still like winning against her opposition. Again, a lot of these are no-name candidates. Like no one really knows who they are. Um, but I don't know if James Craig, who I think failed to qualify. So I guess Whitmer is gonna win this solidly. I guess, because now Craig is off the ballot, and a lot of these are like no-name candidates. Like I don't even know who half these people are. If it was Craig, I think Whitmer would have had a lot more of an issue. Although now without him, I think Michigan will again be a lean Democratic, although she could do better than expected. Ohio. So Ohio will be interesting, as Mike DeWine, who won the primary against several like Trumpian candidates, it's gonna be a really tough one to predict, as you have Nan Whaley who's running against him, but I think DeWine will still win by a healthy margin, even though there is like a lot of like Trump opposition towards him, and like how many think of him as a rhino. But I think he still would do well with moderates in the state of Ohio. Particularly, don't forget, moderates are still an important bloc in Ohio, even though it's a Trumpian state. Even though Ohio is like Trump country. Pennsylvania is interesting because the Pennsylvania GOP is obviously afraid of Doug Mastriano and you're running against Josh Shapiro. So, again, I think Mastriano will really struggle, particularly with moderate voters. Um, like it's not like he can't win, but I definitely do think that he will have a tough time like convincing voters, particularly saying he wants to outflank DeSantis and Youngkin. So that will definitely not play very well with the electorate. Like it might help him win the primary. It helped him win the primary, but again, when you like the GOP needs to run a fine line, especially in states like Pennsylvania, which the GOP cannot afford to lose in 2024, or if they can, they have to make up ground somewhere else. Like they could win Wisconsin and Georgia and still lose Pennsylvania. I will make another video on covering all the combinations the GOP needs in terms of swing states to win the 2024 election. But I definitely do think Doug Mastriano will struggle, particularly if he cannot moderate his views. But I still do think it'll be relatively close. So I'll give Pennsylvania as a leaning Democrat, although I'm not. But if Mastriano can moderate himself, run on the issues, then I can probably put Pennsylvania's tilt Republican. Although, but wait a second. Let me change that because Shapiro also said he's fine if Biden comes to campaign for him. And again, he's kind of nationalizing it, the race, and I feel like that is a losing strategy. So I think Pennsylvania will actually tilt Republican, considering how Shapiro is just going to campaign with Biden. I think it's just reckless on his part. It's super super reckless that he is doing that when he knows his party is like super unpopular, and when you want to localize the politics in a pretty bad environment for you or your party, to bring the president who's already unpopular is just a losing strategy. And if Mastriano can like make a fool out of Biden, so I think Pennsylvania could even lean Republican if he continues this. Let's move on. Let's go this way. Let's go north and then move back down south again along the 95 corridor. The 95 corridor. So the 95 is basically an East Coast highway, and it's pretty prominent. I think you guys know a lot about it. So she's running against former Governor Paul LePage, and Mills is actually leading. And plus, I think LePage is actually a disgraced governor, as he even tried to overthrow the ranked choice voting in Maine. And if he does that, and he allegedly tried to do that as governor, so I think Maine would lean Democrat, considering how Mills is winning even in every poll. So, and she isn't super super unpopular either. So, yeah. Connecticut is interesting as Ned Lamont was only elected by 3 points and was helped by an independent in 2018. He was helped. I think Os Griebel, who helped him narrowly get elected. What was the results? Yeah, Os Griebel, who was who I think is a conservative, and he sort of took away votes from Lamont. He took away votes from Stefanowski, and if he did not take that, I think most of the voters would have broken for him, and Connecticut would have had a Republican governor. But again, I don't think Ned Lamont is super popular at this point. And actually, he's winning against Stefanowski. He's average of 10 points. I did not expect him to perform as well. So Connecticut will probably stay Democrat, maybe likely Democrat. Although maybe lean. If I were to make, I'd just say likely because Lamond is performing well. I think he's popular. He's sort of popular now. I think at one point in the pandemic he was super unpopular. Georgia. So I think these last two I'll probably give to the. Ooh, I didn't give Alaska to the GOP. Interestingly, yeah, I think Dunleavy's still gonna hold on, even if he isn't the most popular guy. Um, Georgia will probably give that as lean Republican, and Florida as likely Republican. Florida, we don't. I don't need to do much explaining. We all know DeSantis is super popular, and he's not going anywhere until at least 2026. Democrats can't. Well, he can't be ousted. If he wins re-election, he can't be ousted unless like he does something terrible, and then. But let's wish he doesn't do anything terrible, Republican or Democrat. We have to wish that our politicians don't do terrible things, and screw the people over in the process. And in Georgia, I think Kemp will hold on again. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my predictions for this year. So again, no change in governorships. I think the GOP flipped Pennsylvania and New Mexico from the Democrats, whereas the Democrats flipped Arizona and Massachusetts and Maryland. So that's my prediction. Like, comment, subscribe. If you guys disagree with my prediction, let me know why. And if you guys agree with it, put a thumbs up. If you guys don't, you can put a thumbs down. I won't be upset. And let me know why you disagree with it. You guys can provide better insight than I could. Maybe like because of course I'm not as well researched, but as a follower of politics, I probably know. I just use whatever data I have and what I know about these. Plus, for much of these predictions, I didn't factor in the national environment because usually the national environment doesn't play a big role in any statewide elections. Like at least not national elections. Like Senate and Houses are national, whereas I think these won't have a big impact. Anyway, guys, libertarian election predictions out.